So I'm roughly the size of a barge. Anyway, I did that note, and Hugh Jackman turned to me and went, very good. It made my night.
This week on Walking the Dog, Raymond and I went for a stroll in London's St James's Park with one of my favourite movie stars, Luke Evans. Luke's show business career began in musical theatre before he got his big Hollywood break in the film Clash of the Titans. And since then, you've seen him star in films like The Hobbit, Dracula Untold, and the Fast and Furious franchise. He was also very memorably, of course, Gaston in Disney's live-action Beauty and the Beast. And I don't know if it was that incredible voice or his ridiculous big-screen charisma, but the man genuinely managed to turn me into a bit of a Gaston apologist. Luke is one of the most charming people you could ever hope to meet in person. Like a lot of movie stars, he's got this incredibly sort of magnetic aura around him. But unlike a lot of movie stars, he's unbelievably grounded and funny and open about who he is. And we had a fascinating chat about his childhood growing up in Wales in a Jehovah's Witness community and the impact that had on him as he tried to wrestle with his identity as a gay man and the faith he'd been born into. It's something he discusses with incredible honesty in his brilliant new memoir, Boy from the Valleys, which is so beautifully written and very powerful and moving too. So I cannot recommend it more. You will absolutely love it. And I can guarantee you're also going to fall hopelessly in love with Luke. Almost as much as he fell for Raymond, he literally scooped him up in his coat and cuddled him for the entire walk. It was the kind of bromance someone needs to make a movie about. I really hope you enjoy my chat with Luke. I'll stop talking now and hand over to the wonderful man himself. Here's Luke and Ray Ray. Luke, you've completely fallen in love with Raymond, haven't you?
Oh, he's gorgeous. Look at his fur. It's just the cutest thing ever.
Right, let's get going on our walk.
I don't think he wants to walk. I think he's happy in my arms.
At the moment, I should say, everyone, I'm so thrilled to be with this man. I'm with the very wonderful Luke Evans, and it's really been, the minute you set eyes on Raymond, you've kind of fallen for him, haven't you?
I mean, look at his little face. He's a tiny little munchkin covered in gorgeous two-tone hair. He's got two-tone hair.
Actually,
People
Luke, we prefer on
thousands of pounds for this kind of hair. He's born with it. He's literally sitting in my hand. He's tiny. God, I love it. Oh, this is like the perfect afternoon.
Thank you so much for coming on Walking the Dog.
Well, I just love the idea of this.
Do you?
I mean, literally couldn't think of anything better. And the gods are on our side. It's not raining.
Well, you're one of the gods, as we know.
Well,
Apollo, I believe.
Twice, darling. Zeus and Apollo. Not just once, but twice. There ain't many Welshmen who've played two Greek gods.
I feel a bit like I'm walking with a Greek god. Walking with you, Luke Evans, I honestly feel like your force field is rubbing off on me, and I'm at least 10% better looking when I'm standing next to you.
Stop it. I think Raymond's helping us both.
Oh.
Raymond, what a name.
Well, we're going to
dog.
talk about your wonderful book, which I've just devoured, Boy from the Valleys, and it's so brilliant. But congratulations, I want to get that out of the way with, because I know when you've written a book, there's that thing of, is it okay?
Well, it's the first time I've ever done it, and possibly the last. I'm not, but you know, it's something that I didn't think I would ever do, and it's taken like 2 years almost since the idea to spending 10 months writing it to, you know, it's a long process to get to the day of release. But yeah, it's been a really enjoyable and a very different experience to anything I've ever done before.
And we're going to talk about that, but I want to go back to your childhood, because handily, we talk about your childhood and, you know, your trajectory a lot on this podcast, and you've neatly done all my homework for me in this fabulous book. When you were growing up, were you a dog family?
So, all I wanted was a dog. Yeah, but we had cats. I don't know why we had cats. My mum never had a cat. My dad didn't have a cat. But then the first cat we ever had was called Pussy, and he was an old moggy, and he basically didn't really like human beings, but then we just had cats. And they're quite independent, but they're sweet. And then when I left home at 16, within a year, my parents had bought a dog.
Sorry, Luke, I got distracted because there's children. I've never seen so many children doing a double take. It was like, is Gaston holding a Shih Tzu?
That happens a lot with kids. Yeah.
No, my niece was very jealous, I have to say. She went, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's not fair. You're going to hang out with Gaston.
Oh, you should have brought her along.
I know. So...
You're very comfortable in my arms.
Can I just say at this point, Luke Evans has not put Raymond down. This is a first. He's just cuddling him into his cashmere coat.
His little bum and his two back feet are sitting comfortably in the palm of my left hand, and his fur is draped over my right arm with his two little paws, and he's just facing out like he's leading the charge. It's quite beautiful.
Are you okay carrying him?
Absolutely.
Oh, Luke,
I love this.
So growing up...
So never had a dog?
I've never
had a dog.
But you had a sort of aviary of birds.
Did, yes.
And you had, as you say, Pussy and Fluffy?
Oh my God. So it was Pussy, Tigger, Fluffy, Polly, Sooty,
They're very tame, these geese, aren't they, Luke?
I know.
I'm glad you're holding Raymond.
Yes, I'm sort of glad Raymond's up here as well.
Do you think they might have designs on him?
Well, they're about 5 times the size of Raymond.
Yeah, but I feel very safe with you around.
That's all right. Most people do at this point.
And one thing that you write about in your book, which I was so fascinated by, because I actually didn't know this about you, and I suspect a lot of people didn't, was that you grew up with your dad, David, and mum, Yvonne, in the valleys in Wales, and they were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yes. So they found the religion when they were in their teenage years.
Yeah.
And, it just seemed to work for them. And then they had me very young. My mum was 19, my dad was 21. Yeah, they were completely... into it, and they studied the Bible, and then I came along and I was brought up within the religion, Yeah,
and it was fascinating. I think you write about it really well, because it's not in a... a lot of people are fascinated by it because they don't know much about it, but I thought you wrote about it brilliantly because you were very honest about it, but there was no judgment, if that makes sense,
Yes, well, listen, it's funny because obviously I've talked about this experience of mine personally many, many times, but I'm now telling it to a worldwide audience. And I thought about how I tell the story, and I thought, well, I'm not going to change a single thing about how I tell the story because it is 100% truth of my experience. It's how it was. And of course, there are painful moments in this story, but I also I just don't have anger. I don't feel angry. I mean, there were points when I possibly did that there was a threat of losing my mum and dad, but I wasn't angry with my mum and dad. I was angry with the religion, but somehow we navigated it, and it didn't I didn't lose them, and
you got through it. But it meant, presumably, that would have given you a sense of difference, wouldn't it, when you were growing up? Because
very much so.
All this stuff, like you tell this really quite a sweet, poignant story. I found it a bit heartbreaking when you're in class, and you suddenly say, I think it's April the 15th.
April the 15th, yeah.
And you say, oh my God, it's my birthday. I
remember it so well. It was in Aberbargoed Primary School, which the building doesn't even exist anymore, and I remember it so well. I just came out with, oh my God, it's my birthday today.
Because we should say Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate birthdays.
They don't celebrate birthdays. They don't, no. There's no cakes, there's no happy birthday song, there's no party, there's no presents, there's nothing. It's just another day. You acknowledge it yourself privately, but there's no celebration of it. So, it would have been very easy for me to have gone to school that morning without us acknowledging that it was the day I was born. If you want to be different, even if that was the only difference, that would have been enough for kids to go, who is this weirdo? Like, what is he? What is this thing? And that's what it was like all the time. And
really?
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots of pigeons.
Don't worry, Raymond, I've got you.
You see, when Luke Evans says that, I believe him. But yeah, and things obviously like Christmas and Easter and all those holidays you didn't celebrate, but
no.
You would get dressed very smartly, wouldn't you? And you would spend a lot of your weekends going round door to door.
We'd spend like an hour on a morning every Saturday and Sunday in the mornings knocking people's doors. Yeah. I used to hate it.
Did you?
I hated it so much. My mum and dad are brilliant at it, and they used to love it. I literally hated it. I knew that they wouldn't want to listen, and they didn't want to open their door on a Saturday morning, especially in the winter months. You know, they're letting all the heat out of the house. You know, the front door's open, and you can smell the toast being, you know, in the toaster, and you can hear going live on in the background, and I'd be standing outside in the cold, like, with my tap shoes on. That you have to read the book to understand why I say tap shoes. You know, in my suit, just wanting that hour to be over. But it wasn't, you know, it was an obligation that witnesses have to do. They have to knock doors and give everybody the opportunity to convert before Armageddon.
And that's this thing that they really believe, don't they? This idea that
the end of the world is coming. Well, this system of things, not the end of the world as in like everybody's going to die, but the end of this kind of existence where the world is right now. God's going to step in, but you know.
And so I'm imagining you as a little boy, and I've seen the pictures, because your dad was, someone just got bit by a bird.
He is feeding them. What do you expect?
Don't mess with Evans. Your dad was super handsome, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Was he kind of was he?
Oh, yeah, all the girls wanted him, yeah. But he was an unusual creature because he was quite quiet.
Yeah.
He was quite private, but he had a sense of style. And he used to wear his monkey boots and his flares, and he was into motorbikes, and he had a three-wheeler. He used to have a thing called a Bond Bug, and they only came in tangerine orange, and they were three-wheeler cars, and you could drive one with a motorbike license, and he had one of those. I mean, he was always, he was a bit of a style icon in the valleys. He is so comfy in my arms.
Do you know, I'm going to take he's so committed to staying there now. I'm taking the lead off. That's
he's like so comfy.
Do you know, he stopped shivering. He
hasn't shivered or anything.
But he's been really out of sorts, Luke, because of the fireworks. He hates it. And he wasn't. So this has been a tonic for him.
Do me a favour. Can you go in my right-hand pocket and just get me my vape stick?
Oh. Which way?
He's so small, I can carry him with one arm. He's like a little teddy bear.
The impression I'm getting of you, Luke, is really other parents would have said, he's a good little boy.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Well-behaved, well-dressed.
Yeah, they brought me up with manners.
Yeah.
I was, being an only child, of course I had friends in the church, you know, in the Kingdom Hall. They were friends of mine. But I was around adults a lot. And I liked listening to adults' conversations. I had a very old auntie that brought my dad up, Lala, and we'd spend every Saturday with her. So I would often listen to her stories and her songs. And she was born in 1914, and so she'd been through 2 world wars, and she'd never had kids of her own. And I was like the apple of her eye. I was a sort of godson, a grandson in a way, even though technically I wasn't. So yeah, I knew how to be around. I didn't mind being in adults' company. I was very respectful. I mean, I was also a pain in the ass. I was also like I was a little bugger, yeah.
Were you? In what way?
Oh, I was just chatty, and I could run rings around my mum and dad very, very easily. I'd drive them up the wall, and then I had this eating problem where I literally wouldn't eat anything that normal kids would eat. And that went on for years and years and years. And I think I really tested my mother's patience. And imagine, when I was like 7, my mum was 26. I sometimes have moments during the last 30 years, 40 years, and I get to a certain age and I'm like, at this age, my mother had a 10-year-old me. How I couldn't even look after myself or worry about somebody else. And there was my mum at that very young age looking after quite a boisterous, opinionated kid, you know. It just was that was the way it was. But yeah,
Do you think it's interesting with the food thing, isn't it? Because often that is linked to control. And forgive the armchair psychology.
Go on.
But I wonder if there was a sense of knowing that you'd been raised in this quite controlled environment where there are a lot of rules with that religion, aren't there? And things you can't do. And, you know, food maybe feels like the one area where you can assert your own autonomy.
Wow,
you know?
I had never thought about that. I have to say that when the food thing started, I was so young, I didn't know about rules or anything. So I don't know whether that would have been the reason. I think it was just basically the taste. I mean, carrots would make me gip. How about you, Raymond? Carrots do the same thing to you, darling? No, I literally, it made me want to, like, just the smell of one.
Really?
Yes, and I had the same with peas and, just random baked beans. I couldn't touch baked beans.
And you had this fabulous grandmother, your maternal grandmother.
Lala, yeah.
She used to put fag ash in her heels.
Oh, no, that's my nan.
Yeah.
Nana Enid.
And she would... She sounds a bit like sort of Catherine Tate's nan.
She was a bit. She was a little bit, yeah.
What sort of things would she say, Luke? She would say...
I mean, we were at a wedding once and I said, the bride looks nice, doesn't she, Nan? And my nan went, she looks like a pig in a wig. It's like... And I won't tell you who that person who was getting married was, but they were quite closely related to my nan. My nan would just say whatever she felt, and it was what made her the woman she was. She'd been through a lot. She'd reared 6 kids, and she smoked like a chimney. She loved a Mars bar and a Trebor extra strong mint, but she could tell a story like no one else. She'd have everyone from the kids to the adults crying in laughter at stories. I remember a couple of years before she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she never drank, hated alcohol, but she would tell a story like, it was just phenomenal to be around. I just love it. Her storytelling was just incredible.
One other thing you write about, Luke, in this book, which really touched me actually, and I think you write about it so honestly, is this sense of being different and those difficult feelings you were having when you realised, you were coming to terms with your own sexuality. And obviously, again, in the religion that you happen to be born into, there's not a lot of tolerance for that, is there?
Zero tolerance.
Yeah, and that was tough.
Well, imagine knowing you're different, not being able to talk to anybody about what these feelings are and why I feel different, having to work it out all on my own at like 8, 9, 10. Then realizing that what it is that made me different was something that my mum and dad and the religion that we went to the church of 3 times a week drilled into us that, men who lie with men, it's in the Bible, are as bad as murderers, adulterers, and they were going to die at Armageddon. And that was my introduction to how I was feeling. It's a terrible, scary thing. So I just kept it to myself. And somehow my own voice, or whatever voice that was in my head saying everything was going to be all right, or just kept me going,
But that must have been so difficult. And you talk about, going to this bookshop, which was really life-changing for you, because you discover all this literature. And, what I found, this actually broke me. I was in tears.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, just this idea you talk about when you go there and you buy these books separately because you don't want to bring them home. I'm actually welling off a bit now thinking about it, because it's just so, it's like, I think how young you were and having to feel shame over that, you know?
Yeah, well, I just didn't have anyone else I couldn't ask anyone. I couldn't tell my friends because they were all witnesses, and so that bookshop just, it was everything. It answered questions. It allowed me, for the first time I realized, I wasn't on my own. That there were other people older than me, of course, but they were adults and they were happy. And I mean, the big moment for me was meeting the Samaritan, which was a counselor. When I was 14, 15, I tried to go to a psychologist because I wanted them to help me, and I couldn't speak to anybody that I knew because they were all witnesses. And she offered a 14-week course for £300 a session. I was like, I can't afford that. I'm 15 years old. So she gave me the number to a Samaritan. I called, and he was just about to close up for the evening in Cardiff, and I went to his place where he was, just like, Samaritans, they help with everybody. He happened to be a gay man. And I told him my story, and I felt very lost. I didn't know where I was going, and I can't tell anyone, and I don't know whether I have to change. I don't know how to do this. And he reassured me that I wasn't on my own and that there was nothing wrong with me. And I spoke to that man that once, and I went home with a tiny little flame that I kept alive, knowing that I wasn't wrong, I wasn't broken. I was actually totally fine, and I was going to be okay. Thank God for that man.
And you weren't able initially. You sort of your mum found out, didn't she?
Well, I told her.
Yeah.
I mean, they found the books.
Yeah.
But we didn't really talk about it after that.
Yeah, you didn't. Did you just not discuss it after that?
No, which was not helpful for me. I felt even more depressed and frustrated. But I understand if for them to have acknowledged it meant an unraveling of everything that we knew, and it's better just to hope it goes away, which sometimes things do, but most of the time they don't.
And I suppose what's complicated as well, according to their beliefs, there's an element, you're damned.
Yes, yeah, exactly right.
It's very, very complicated.
And at that age, it's not like you have a friendship support network outside. All you have is your mum and dad and your friends. And the thought of losing them, at that age, you shouldn't be thinking of any of those things, really. And I had to. So I just stayed quiet and just got on with what I had until I knew I could leave home at 16. And
you did, didn't you?
I did exactly what I planned.
And you started this whole new life, and you...
Yeah, slowly I met new people and got a job, and they introduced me to other friends, and I slowly built up a little network of people. And
one thing I was really interested in about you, and it was this pattern that kept emerging, was how you're very committed to kind of self-betterment, way, that you would say, right, it's fascinating to me, you met introduced to this new crowd of people through someone that you're dating, and they're a bit older and quite cultured, and I love this. You said, I got a thesaurus.
Yeah, still have it. They'd sit there and they'd say words, and I'd be like, oh my God, that's amazing. I know what they're saying, but I've never heard that word. And I'd be like, I need to understand, there are other words to say things. And I just knew that my vocabulary was too small. And I wanted to better myself, my vocabulary, my way of communicating. And I wanted to sound better read than I was. And, no one read in my house. We only read the Bible. So my parents used to struggle to read, so there was no stories in the evening. They'd tell a story, but it'd come from their head, it wouldn't be from a book. And the only reading I would do would be from the Bible, and that's a certain way of writing. And Yeah, bought a thesaurus and started to build up my words.
I love that though, because you could have, do you know what I mean? Often you might come across people like that and think that, often that does happen when you're from a different world, and you might feel resentful. Or
no.
Do you know what I mean? But you're very...
No, I had ambition.
Yeah, you did. Were you very ambitious?
Very. First time we ever came to London, I was about 9 or 10, with a family from Hemel Hempstead. They brought us on the underground, the overground, then the underground. We popped up in Leicester Square or Piccadilly Circus, and I looked at this city and I was like, I'm going to live here one day. And then off we trotted back to our little terraced house, 3 up, 2 down, little terrace garden, and I thought, this is their life, but it's not mine, and I know I'm not going to be happy here. And when I'm old enough, I'm going to leave, and that's basically what I did.
And you did?
I did.
You'd always presumably had this sense that you had a talent for performing, because I was so rooting for you in the school play, the musical, and you get cast. There's this hugely significant moment where you get cast as Captain Von Trapp against the odds.
Oh, yeah.
And you...
Yeah, that was a moment, let me tell you.
And the school golden boy, I'm afraid he ends up as... Rolf the Nazi.
Rolf the Nazi. Jason Musgrave. Yeah, he was a handsome lad, he was, and everybody loved him. And
the children, that was so sweet. The teacher was like, all right. The children love you, Luke, don't they?
Thank Disney for that.
I'm going to start using that as an expression. Thank Disney for that. Your career in sort of musical theatre and started, you had this incredible singing teacher in Wales, didn't you?
Yes, and Louise.
Who it turned out was also teaching the young Charlotte Church.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I remember my first ever class with her. I turned up a little early, so I had to stand in the corridor of her terraced house while she finished her the class before me, and this voice came out of this room, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. Thinking like this 16-year-old girl or older was going to walk out, and this 9-year-old in a school uniform with her hair in pigtails walked out and went, hello. And I was like, oh, hello. And anyway, that ended up being Charlotte Church and her mother Maria. Yeah.
Who you went on to become sort of lifelong friends with.
Yes.
Which is really lovely, because there must have been something quite lovely about both of you having that sense of, we know where we've been.
Yeah.
We know where we came from.
Yeah. We've been through a lot, different lives, very different stories, but we have been through it, yeah.
I get the sense that, similar to you, she always has struck me as someone who didn't want to leave her old life behind.
No. She's staunchly protective of her family and her life.
Is that
and
a
keeping
Welsh
it
thing?
real. Yes, I think it probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Sheen is very much like that, and who else? Me.
Do you know what I've noticed, Luke, walking around with you?
Yeah.
I know this sounds weird, but it's really lovely, just the joy that you inspire, because British people are quite well-mannered. Do you know what I mean? They're very like, we haven't just seen him, well, let's pretend.
Yeah.
But their faces, it's like they've suddenly had some glowy filter on their faces when they see you. Is that lovely that people
It is,
look
but
happy?
I'm wondering whether it's less me, it's more Raymond. Let's be clear here.
Yeah, but what
I'm
about...
carrying a furball of happiness. Who's like,
what about the double whammy of you and Raymond?
Well, that might be part of it. I mean, I've lost my hand in his fur for so long.
You ended up... It was, you were a jobbing actor for quite a long time, until you were around 27.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, you did Taboo, didn't you? Which was
Taboo was when I was like 22.
It was so incredible in your book, and again, such an insight into you that I couldn't actually believe this. You got a call from a friend. You're doing all these sort of odd jobs as actors do to support themselves, and a friend says, do you know a hairdresser?
This is a brilliant
And what do you do, Luke?
Well, I was poor, and I wasn't working at the time, and I was struggling to pay my rent, I was the knockoff food at the end of the night kind of person. I literally was surviving. My friend, Walt, he was the manager of the private members club and hotel home house. And I don't know why he called me. I don't know why he thought I might know a hairdresser. And he said, I have a client who's staying tonight, and she's very high-powered, big businesswoman, and she needs her hair styled for this big ball she's going to. Her husband's getting an award tonight. Do you know anybody last minute? I need to find one. And I said, I can do that. And he said, okay, Luke, back to this. No joke now. Who do you know? I went, no, I can do that. I can style her hair. I cut people's hair all the time. And by the way, I did. I used to cut my singing teacher's hair. I used to cut my friend's hair for £5 in college just to make some money. So he said, Luke, if you fuck this up, I will never forgive you. I said, trust me, I can do this. So I got on the bus, went up Oxford Street, stopped at Claire's Accessories, picked up a couple of pins, went to W.H. Smith, picked up the new Heat magazine, stopped in Boots and bought all the miniatures, hairspray, comb, put them all in a plastic bag, turned up at her room. She turned up and she just assumed that I was who she thought I was, and she was like, hello, darling. I went, let's have a look at your dress. She got her this big ball round dress, and it had no straps on the shoulders, and I thought, okay, I said, we should put your hair up. She was like, great. I was like, thank God for that, because all I could do was a French pleat. So I literally, there must have been like 400 pins in her head by the time I'd finished, and 3 bottles of hairspray. And she was very happy with it. She ordered a bottle of champagne. I wandered out of there with 90 quid in my pocket, and she went to the ball. Walt called me about 4 hours later. She just got home. I was thinking, oh God, he's calling me to say it's all fallen down. She's come home crying, mascara running down her face. And he went, she has walked in and her hair is exactly the same as when she left. I was like, there we go. I said, well, if there's any more people need their hair doing, just let me know.
You know, some people have that yes and, they call it, don't they? You know?
Yeah.
And you're very... The fact that you just thought, I can do this. It's an interesting mix you are, isn't it?
Survival technique.
Do you think so?
Yeah. I was like, well, I can give this money to someone else, or I can do it. And I wouldn't have done it. Oh, trust me, I wouldn't have said yes if I had no idea. I knew I could do it. I knew I could do it. And I needed the money, so I just said yes.
And you have found yourself in this extraordinary position of going from odd jobs like this, you get this incredible agent suddenly.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly you get Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
And you're playing Apollo, and then you get 4 movies in a year, virtually.
Yeah.
Did you just suddenly allow yourself a moment of thinking, okay, I think I'm going to be a movie star?
No. No, I didn't. No, absolutely not. No, I just kept going, they keep making a mistake.
Did you feel
and at some point they're going to realise that I'm not good enough, and I don't have the chops to be doing this. It's just going to happen at some point. They're just going to work it out, and they never did. And you know, so early on I didn't think, this is my new life, I'm going to be a movie star. I just thought, whatever money they're going to give you, do something right with it. And I did. I sorted out my credit card, paid off my friend who gave me money to buy my mum and dad's next door neighbour's house, sorted out my mum and dad's mortgage. I didn't have much left by that point. It wasn't like I was being paid lots of money in those first movies. And I thought, well, at least if that's it, I did something good with it. And now back to, being a jobbing actor. Well, actually, I wasn't going to go back to it. I'd already thought I was going to give it up by that point. And then the movies just kept coming. They just kept coming. And I couldn't believe it.
You tell this really interesting story about how you're working on, I think it was on Clash of the Titans, forgive me if I'm wrong, but it was when you found yourself chatting to Liam Neeson?
Liam, yeah.
I didn't know any of this. It was fascinating to me that you have a thing called a leaning board.
Yeah, well, when you're
what
in
does
armour.
that mean?
Well, because we were in armour, that was clearly, armour is not to be sat down in. I mean, armour is just, it's just not, they're not comfortable. And it's costume armor, but it's made of metal and it's very uncomfortable. So you couldn't sit in a seat. So they made these boards that were like 6.5 foot long at a 45-degree angle, and you could just lean back on them. And so we just used to lean on these boards, talking to each other. Oh my God, yeah, it's so weird.
Imagine if someone had walked in and seen you and Liam Neeson.
Imagine that was my first job. It was the weirdest thing I've ever done. Yeah, it was like so strange.
And Ralph Fiennes, was he in that? Was he in that?
Ralph was in it, yeah.
So
yeah.
I was interested to read that you, again, it's back to buying the thesaurus. I feel you approached that job in the same way in movie acting, that you thought, I'm going to watch and learn.
Yeah.
And what did you notice about the way they performed that was useful to you?
Well, it was the nuance and the subtlety of facial movement, the level at which they spoke, the volume at which they spoke, the intensity of what they did, but with a containment, which I thought was like, well, if you did that on a West End stage, you would, the front row would struggle to hear you. Never mind the gods. And I realized, of course, because they're all mic'd and the camera is in their face. I was like, oh, wow. No one had told me anything. I hadn't learned any of that in musical theatre school, you know. It was like, so I literally was, every day was like first day of school. I was just constantly learning, and I'd write it all down, and the next day I would try and utilize what I'd learned the day before watching Rafe or Liam or any of the other actors that were around. You know, I just it was constantly learning. And let me tell you, to this day, I'm learning.
Really?
Still to this day. Now I like to learn about the cameras and behind the camera. I like to understand the lenses and the focus pulling and you know, all these different things that, you know, by the way, without the crew and those amazingly clever people, movies would never be made. Actors are just a small cog in a very large machine.
You're a very versatile actor, aren't you? Because you can do, you know, you're an action hero and you can do all these big blockbuster movies, but there's also, I think there's a lot of vulnerability about you. There's a quality about you I noticed in that film you did recently, which I loved. It was the recent film about you know, a gay couple going through a divorce,
son.
and I loved that film.
Yeah.
I think that vulnerable quality to you it's something that I think is sort of sets, I don't know, it's why I love your work. But I'm interested, after you've done all these films, you're presumably getting offers all the time, because there's that, again, you talk about this, which is interesting. It's almost a breakthrough point, isn't there? That one thing leads to another thing, and they think, oh, well, he's in that. We want him now. You know, you get hot very quickly.
You do.
But all this is going on, and you've got that slight pressure of suddenly it's becoming, people are digging out old cuts and old interviews you've done, and your sexuality is being discussed again.
Oh, yeah.
And that's tough, Luke, because...
Well, it's like, oh my God, do I have
business.
to do this all again? And also some people thinking I'd gone in the closet. I was like, I didn't go in the bloody closet. I was just getting on with the job. No, my job wasn't to come out again as far as I was concerned. But a lot of people had assumed that because I wasn't talking about it all the time, meant that I was trying to hide it. And of course that wasn't the case. I had a boyfriend at home. We had a life together. We had a tropical fish tank. We my boyfriend at the time was a maths teacher in a school in Tottenham, and I was supporting us so he could do his psychology degree, and he's now a full-fledged psychologist. You know, all that no one knew about at the time. It was really painful because I've never ever hidden it. I've never been ashamed of it. But at the time the movie started, I thought, well, let's just focus on the fact that I'm doing all these big movies. But of course, you know, press, gossip, media, tabloids, they're never happy. They always want to dig a bit more. And unfortunately, a lot of people will believe what's written. And at that point, it was very painful because they misinterpreted what had been written as I was ashamed of who I was, and I was hiding, and I really wasn't. I hadn't shouted it loud enough for the third time. for people to understand. Now, of course, everything's different, and
you
I
were
am
disfellowshipped.
who I am. Let's go across the page.
And you were disfellowshipped from, is that what it's defellowshipped? Is it called?
Yes, yeah. Well, that was like, that was 6 years after I'd left the religion. Yeah.
And what does that mean?
Well, it means that no one else then will ever speak to you. You're basically dead to them. It's like you didn't exist. And I lost, by that point I'd lost touch with most of my friends from the religion anyway, because I'd moved away so far to London. And I sort of understood that that was what was going to happen, but it's very painful. I don't have any friends from 16 below that I knew in my life. They haven't spoken to me ever since. And I miss some of them a lot. But my relationship with them stopped a very, very long time ago. And I often wonder how they are and why. Yeah.
That's
But
really
I don't blame
hard.
them.
No.
It's not their fault. It's the religion that has told them that they can't. And,
Right.
you know, if you believe in something, you have to stick to the rules. But it's just a shame.
The first time I remember being really aware of you was Tamara Drew.
Oh my God.
I love that film
Love
so
that film.
much. Because I'd always loved Posey Simmons.
Yes.
And it's such a great story in those, I mean, they were sort of like the people I grew up with. So,
Yes.
you know, all those middle class.
What newspaper was it in?
Posey Simmons, I think she might have been in The Guardian or
I
something.
think it was The Guardian
I
too,
think-
yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
very Guardian reader and it was
Very,
quite
yeah.
literary. But,
Because it was far from the Madding Crowd. It was an adaptation of that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
A modernised version.
she's so good. But that was
And I
so-
was Terence Stamp.
Yes.
Was I Terence Stamp?
You were very hot is what you were.
Oh, God.
But, so I remember that, but you've gone on to star in, you've done some incredible work, Luke, over the years, but we're going to have to discuss Beauty and the Beast, I'm afraid.
Come on, let's do it.
I mean, I can't. I saw you doing a Gaston off with on Jonathan Ross's show.
Yeah.
With, was it Hugh Jackman and Taron Egerton?
That's right, yeah. They were on promoting Eddie the Eagle movie, and I was on, I don't know what I was on promoting, something else. It wasn't Beauty and the Beast, but I had finished Beauty and the Beast.
Was it Dracula?
No.
Must have been
I
after
don't know
that.
what it was. Not sure.
But quite honestly, I love those boys. You wipe the floor. You're my Gaston. I'm sorry. You don't get pipes like that. Sorry, Hugh.
It was a good night. I remember because I stood next to Hugh when we were singing, and so in the film I asked Alan Menken, who wrote the song with Howard Ashman. There's a line where it goes, I use no, what is it? 3 dozen. This, what is it? When, what is it? I have a terrible memory.
Come on, she'll know. Gaston.
Every day. What's about the eggs?
We're better than in the bed this morning. The same old bread and butter.
What do I say with the eggs?
What is she, a prop?
Every morning I eat 5 dozen eggs. But it's the bit when he comes in, when he goes, and he puts LeFou on one shoulder and a girl on the other. It's halfway through, it's about the 5 dozen eggs. Let me see the 5 dozen. Yeah.
So what? I'm
When
going to
I
cue you
was a
in.
lad, I ate 4 dozen eggs every morning to help me get large. And now that I'm grown, I eat 5 dozen eggs, so I'm roughly the size of a barge. But then I did that. But then instead of staying on that note, I went up. But so I'm roughly the size of a barge. Anyway, I did that note, and Hugh Jackman turned to me and went, "Very good." It made my night.
People are literally open mouthed because I should say, when St James's Park,
Raymond has not even batted an eyelid.
but these women turn round and they were sort of your peak Gen Z Beauty and the Beast live action audience.
Wondering
and
what
I don't think I've ever ever seen a jaw drop like that? You were sort of disgustingly good looking in that film.
They gave me fake teeth and everything.
Did they? Why?
Yeah, because they wanted to hide my fangs. Because I've got really long canines, and
Yeah, but that came in useful
for Dracula it came in very useful, but they wanted to get rid of them, so they gave me much bigger teeth. So for a couple of weeks I had a bit of a strange lisp till I worked the teeth out. But yeah, it was very fun, very, very fun.
Did you ever have pressure to get your fangs? You know,
No.
as part of your character, I love that.
No one would dare tell me to get rid of my fang or my accent. Oh no. They tried to get me to move to LA for a long time, and I was like, I'm absolutely not moving to LA.
Really?
I was 30 years old. I'm not giving up 14 years of my life. I've created a family, a circle, a friendship, a support network. I wasn't going to give it up. I couldn't.
Do you live here now then, Luke?
I
in
live
London?
between here in London, and I live in Lisbon, and I have a house in Ibiza and Madrid. And
It's the dream.
Yeah, it's a dream. It's a hard-earned dream, but yes, it's a dream nonetheless. And I'm very happy I get to share it with my friends and my family. And
And you've
yeah,
got
it's
a long-term
wonderful.
partner. Are you comfortable? you mentioned
Yes,
it, yeah.
very happy. Yeah, I've had a great relationship.
He's cultured.
Very.
I'm going to have to get my thesaurus out when I meet him.
You're a little warm now, I can tell. He's just stood up a little bit. Or you want a better view? It's just not high enough, are you? darling?
Luke, I think what's your partner's name?
Fran,
I think
We
Luke
get it.
and Fran are going to have to get a dog soon, don't
we
you?
have to. People are turning, not for me, darling, just so you know, they're turning for Raymond. He's just so used to it. He's such a
Luke, you
celebrity
just
in
stood
St.
here
James's Park.
singing Gaston. Like, people are looking at both. You're quite the combo, is what I would say.
No, we really want a dog.
And what I'm interested to know, because
I've got his little paw on my fingertip. Oh my God, it's the cutest thing. Oh, you are gorgeous. He may have to come and turn on the Christmas lights with me tonight.
Are you turning on the lights?
I'm turning on the Covent Garden Christmas lights tonight.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah,
You know what
that's
I
where I'm
like?
going, straight after this.
I love that you get Covent Garden. It's quite high-end lights.
Quite high-end, right? I've never turned lights on in my life.
He's not messing about with the
No.
Tottenham Court Road. He's going straight to Covent Garden.
Look at this.
Was that a real kind of like game changer doing Beauty and the Beast, just in
Well,
terms
it
of the
changed my
recognisability?
demographic.
Yeah.
I was recognised already a lot from Fast and the Furious and Dracula and The Hobbit, of course. But that was for adults. And then Beauty and the Beast came along, and all of a sudden there's like 3-year-olds just wanting to come and say hello at a restaurant or in the airport. That would be the funniest thing.
Really?
I'd walk past a screaming child, and all of a sudden they'd stop screaming and just stare at me open-mouthed as I went by with my luggage. And I realized it's an extraordinary thing.
Well, I've got to say I'm a Gaston apologist. afraid I am. But then I also fancied the wrong one in Titanic. You know, the mean posh one.
Oh yeah, Billy Zane.
Billy Zane I liked. I'm a Billy Zane apologist as well.
Oh, he's
but
got great eyes, Billy Zane.
Yeah.
Amazing eyes. But
you
yes.
said, Luke, which I found really interesting in your book, you said, I wouldn't recommend fame necessarily. Why
No.
is that?
Well, there's the nice side of it, of course, as we've seen today, when people smile and you can see like it's a happy experience they're having.
It's a happy experience Ray's having.
Ray's loving it. Ray's so used to this. He's a superstar.
Go on. What aspects of it wouldn't you recommend
It's
necessarily?
the fact that you lose a sense of privacy.
We've just come across this little chihuahua. Is that a chihuahua? Ever so sweet. What's it called? Kush. Oh, Kush. Hello, darling. I'm sorry. Hello. You.
This one's Raymond.
This is Raymond.
He's done walking for the day.
Yeah, my friend's carrying him now.
See, there's your little platform.
Lovely to meet you.
I don't know what we're talking
We were
about.
just saying what about fame is tough. I presume the lack of
it's
privacy.
the lack of privacy. It's the feeling self-conscious about, I don't know, going sitting in a coffee shop on my own without knowing people are watching, or Or somebody comes up to you in a restaurant. I've eaten a few times on my own recently, and somebody comes up and they say, "Oh, excuse me, can I take a picture?" And of course I'm not going to say no, it would be rude, but then everybody in the restaurant is aware of you being there, and I weirdly, I was never in it for that acknowledgement. Right. I'm in it because I like to entertain people, but now I'm in a place where people, once the floodgates are opened with one person asking a picture, that's it. It's it's not a bad thing. Of course, it's nice, but if it's all the time, it can be quite demanding. And obviously, I talk about it in the book. Like I have to put myself in their shoes and go, of course, Dracula's just walked into their little bakery. And of course, it's the most bizarre thing for them. And I have to use a lot of empathy and understand where I put myself in their shoes. So that's sort of where I am. And I cope with it well. But fame, I wouldn't say you should never come into this industry for the fame part. I think I didn't. I just love acting. I just love singing. I love entertaining.
Well, bear in mind, you'd always done ensemble work because you'd worked in musical theatre, and I think people that have had that background, sometimes that's very helpful because you see it much more as a company. You don't see yourself as
you're never front and centre. Yeah.
Well, Luke, I wanted to ask you, we're going to have to let you go soon to turn on the Covent Garden Christmas lights, although I don't know if Raymond's going to let you go. I've got to be honest.
Raymond's coming with me, darling. You have to find a new dog. I'm sorry.
I'm afraid I'm so
He's plotted.
I think I would probably let you take him.
Don't you dare say that.
I loved your book so much. I've so fallen for you as a person, Luke Evans. I want to ask you before we go, I have a question I often ask people, which is, what do you most hope people would say about you once you walk out of the room, and what do you most fear? So let's start with the horrible one first. What do you worry people might say when you walk out of a room, and what do you hope they'd say?
I would hate to think people didn't care.
Yeah.
They would thought that I didn't care.
Right.
Because I really do.
And what do you hope they'd say?
I hope they'd say that what a nice guy.
Yeah.
What a nice guy. That I gave them the time of day and said hello and asked them questions, and I think that was what I'd like. I just try and be nice, try and be kind.
Well, you don't strike me as an angry. I can't imagine you having. Do you have a temper?
Well, you'd have to ask Fran that.
Oh, I will be. Are you a sulker?
I have no, I don't sulk.
I think you're out with it, aren't you?
I straight out, get it out of the way, get it out, and then back to normal. Very wash it off and get on with it.
Shake
I
it
know
off.
someone that holds resentment. I don't have regret. I don't live with those things. Bitterness is a very dangerous, toxic energy which I don't want to be around. And life is for living. Life is for forgiving. Life is for learning. Life is for accepting. And that's basically how I want to live my life.
Luke Evans, it's been an absolute pleasure. I kind of knew I was going to love you. Oh, Gaston! Ray has completely fallen for you. Your book is so brilliant.
This little munchkin, he's just the cutest little thing. I could put you in a little Christmas hat, maybe a little couple of baubles. By the way, my mother's dog, Georgie, would never have sat in my arms like this. He hated me.
Did he?
He knew I was a threat to my mother's attention. They used to call, Luke, your brother's here, do you want to say hello? I'd be like, he's not my brother. He is not my brother. He's a little shih tzu. Look, people are taking pictures of the doggy. Look, he's so cute.
I mean, it is quite the photo op. Luke, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And congratulations. You've written a really special book and you should be so proud of yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you read it and
I loved it.
You got it. You got it.
Raymond would love to see you again.
So he's leaning even more into me at this point because he knows you're about to take him away.
Raymond, will you say goodbye to Luke?
He's already whispered sweet nothings in my ear. All right, here you go.
Luke.
Take him back.
What a
by
joy.
my love.
What a joyful man you are. We've got a bit of a posse now gathering.
It's all right.
Thank you so much, Luke. And
Do you want a
congratulations.
picture?
Do you want to take one?
Come
Go
on, then,
on.
let's do it.
Oh, God.
Who's taking it?
Nobody's taking it.
Thank you.
No worries. We've all got lovely long coats on. Look at us. We're like, we got the memo.
You're such a cool, good-looking guy.
Thank you so
He
much.
hears that every day.
No. Yes, I wish I did. All right, girls.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Hey, look, you look great in your coats, girls.
I do. Look at us.
Look, great coat
Amazing
action going on. Thank you.
A selfie also, please.
Oh, God, you don't last for a lot. do you?
Second one costs.
We don't
you
know.
got a beard?
We can't afford you, darling.
There we go. There we go.
I think he's sure.
Luke, you're amazing. And honestly, that book, it's amazing. I laughed, I cried.
Tell your friends.
Oh, we're going to tell the world. Enjoy the Christmas lights. Bye, wonderful man.